My background is in documentary. The process of getting to know, building trust with a documentary subject, a lot of times it takes a lot of calls or meetings, a lot of conversations for them to trust that you're going to represent them accurately and respectfully, not going to make them look silly, not going to scam them.
Yeah.
And I also have to trust that they're going to deliver. They're going to be able to, as first-time actors or as a documentary subject, untrained, they're going to be able to bring something and emotional and add some of their personality to the project
We are the
Get Reelisms podcast.
I am Adam Chase Ready.
And I am Christine Chen. And surprise, we're both filmmakers.
We get into it by sharing secrets, advice, and gossip in filmmaking.
We even get our other filmmaking friends to share theirs too.
So please, everybody, join us for
an ode to filmmaking.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone once and all to the Get Reelisms podcast, episode 187. My name is Adam Chase Rennie.
I'm Christine Chen, and today we have a very special guest I'm really excited to introduce. Sam, could you say who you are, what do you do, and, the whole shebang?
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. My name's Sam Davis. I'm a filmmaker based in Los Angeles, and I'm currently campaigning with my live action short, which is nominated for an Academy Award, The Singers.
Yay, I'm so excited. Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah, Sam, I started following you when you were, you are the DP for Dee Dee. And so I reached out to you actually when I saw that. And then the bonus was that then I discovered that you also did The Singers. And then it got nominated for the Academy Award, which was craziness.
Surreal.
Really surreal. Yeah. Yeah. Can you describe the whole process of that? Like, when did you come up with the idea of The Singers? Like, what month that happened? And then from the conception of the project itself, walk us through when it got made and then how it ended up here where it is right now.
Sure. Yeah, the conception of the idea dates all the way back probably three and a half years.
Damn.
Something like that.
Okay.
I read the short story in George Saunders' book, A Swim in a Pond in the Rain, where he breaks down these 7 classic Russian short stories as like a storytelling masterclass. A really interesting book. And that was my first exposure to the short story. Shortly after that, I had the idea of doing sort of a modern take on the short story, but starring all of these first time actors, viral video singing sensations, buskers from around the world, and filling up a bar with those types of unexpected talents. It took about 1.5 years to put the cast together because we were just tracking people down on social media. A lot of people thought they were being scammed, or some warming up to the idea. And I reached out and I would say, I'm a filmmaker based in LA and I want you to come and play yourself in my movie. Some skeptics early on, but it took about 1.5 years to put the cast together and just to put all the pieces together, build a team. And we shot the film. We premiered 1 year ago. And we shot the film probably 8 months before that. So it's been a long journey, and we're still, I can't believe I was editing our trailer the other day and I was thinking, I can't believe I'm still editing this footage. I'm really grateful and really excited and so thrilled for all of this exposure, but it's a lot of dwelling on a project that you made. But of course, to this level of exposure from myself and the cast and our whole team is a huge commodity and of course worthwhile.
Do you feel that despite editing it for the 500 millionth time that you still find new things as you are re-editing it, or are you pretty over it?
I'm not. I wouldn't say
I totally
I'm
get
over it. I think as filmmakers, we want to create, want to
Yes.
make new stuff all the time. And when you're campaigning for 3 or 4 months, it really is all consuming. And
Yes.
so you're not generating new stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are little discoveries made, and like the new format of editing a trailer, you filter all the footage through like a new lens and notice some new things. But,
Yeah, you're pretty over
But yeah,
it.
I know the footage quite well at this point. Yeah.
I get it. That was how it was Adam knows when I was campaigning, like doing my feature, it was the same thing. I was just
Yeah.
over it. Yeah, I wish it. And you don't. It's the part where you don't really even have money to farm it off to somebody else, so you have to do it yourself, and then you just don't care
Exactly.
to do it, but you have to. So
You just watched
yeah,
a cut of Ursula 5,000 times.
How did you end up convincing people that it wasn't a scam?
It just takes time. My background is in documentary. The process of getting to know, building trust with a documentary subject, a lot of times it takes a lot of calls or meetings, a lot of conversations for them to trust that, you're going to represent them accurately and respectfully, not going to make them look silly, not going to scam them.
Yeah.
And I also have to trust that they're going to deliver. They're going to be able to, as first-time actors or as a documentary subject, untrained, they're going to be able to bring something and emotional and add some of their personality to the project in a meaningful way. So there's a trust building process that works both ways.
I really love that your background is documentary. I started off in docs too. So yeah, I wonder, I really like that I started off in docs because it allowed me to start off knowing everything in terms of shooting and editing. And I really think that it affected how I was able to deliver and finish a project. How do you feel that it's affected the way that you've told stories from narrative process?
This project in a lot of ways was an exercise in sort of synthesizing those skill sets and seeing if we could use, I wanted to see if we could have the film was made without a script and all first-time actors. So we were really leaning into the unknown. We were really leaning into spontaneity. We didn't make it like that because we ran out of time to write a script or something. We made it like that because of my background in documentary. I really believe in the magic that can come out of open-endedness. And so we went about it a lot like we would on a documentary. We would roll really long takes, sometimes 20-minute long takes. But because we were shooting on film, we might only actually be rolling 2 or 3 minutes of that 20 minutes. But the cast doesn't know the difference because I'm not slating. There are no there's no distinct cadence, traditional on-set cadence. And we roll sound constantly. So we would essentially roll sound a couple times a day before lunch and after lunch here and there occasionally. But all of that audio is very usable raw material that's woven into the soundscape 2 or 3 levels deep so that it feels really rich and really detailed. But yeah, usually in that 20-minute long take, the first 5 minutes would be pretty stiff. But we were building towards something, and I would throw prompts into the mix and try to incite something new. And as soon as it clicked and felt true or felt interesting, my finger was on the button and we were rolling. And then when it stalled out, I would cut. But I felt like it felt very organic to be right on the camera like that, to be directing and shooting again, because in docs, it's like you're working with a 3, 4, 5 person crew. Everybody's wearing multiple hats. And so for me, and I just think of myself as a filmmaker and shooting and lighting a movie, having your eye, especially when shooting on film, when the only real good look at the image is through the viewfinder. I always want to be on that. Yeah. So because of my documentary background, it really made wearing multiple hats feel like a natural sort of process.
Have you always shot on film? Is that your choice? Always medium?
I shoot on film quite a lot. Not always, but I have fallen into, or maybe not fallen into, I've probably chosen this niche of shooting documentaries on film.
Okay.
Which is pretty uncommon today.
That's expensive.
I really love the process. It can be expensive, but it creates forces a different level of intentionality where usually in docs mindlessly, endlessly, and I think it lends a subject matter or a person, whatever your film is about, it's an act of love toward an appreciation toward them to say, we're going to do this the hard way. We're going to shoot on film. And I think it just lends the film a different type of weight and every project. There are plenty of documentaries that I would never opt to shoot on film, but because naturally you lose stuff, you miss stuff, you trade whatever that sort of intangible, the reverence or the weight, the nostalgia of film, you trade for the compromises that you're gonna miss stuff. You're gonna roll out at the worst possible moment occasionally, but for some projects, I think it really does elevate them in a massive way.
It's funny. I was like, oh, I've never shot on film. Then I realized, oh yeah, never mind. All my docs before were shot in mini DVs, so that's film. Yeah. When I first started, because my first project was a doc that I did in China with a mini DV. It was mini DV cameras, the first HD mini DV cameras. Yeah, so it was film.
Yeah,
I have shot on film.
There you
But
go.
I haven't done narratives on film, so that's something I haven't. Everything else has been digital, so I'd like to play with
Yeah, you
film.
should. Yeah.
Everything. So once you gathered all the people, the whole filming process was across a span of how many days?
We shot for about 4 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it really helped with, how contained the film was. The fact that it was set in one location allowed us to like really dig in and lean into the details and make sure we had plenty of coverage, especially considering we were making it up as we went along. We were like sculpting it as we went, and we did it without a schedule.
Yeah, from an AD standpoint, I'm like,
way of working.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah, nightmare. Yeah. It was an inefficient, clumsy, but really inspired way to work. I'd never made anything quite like this. I don't think anyone who was on set had. I always remember our first safety meeting in the morning on day one, when Dustin, our AD producer, said, "Schedule on this one is interesting," and
there's no schedule.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
And he saw the crew looking around. We're in for a appeal here, but yeah, you ask a lot of your crew and your cast and collaborators when demanding this much sort of flexibility, because it's hard on everybody. But I think once people get it and you get into a rhythm and people start to see those little nuggets that are emerging and how we're building around it, it's not your regular sort of workflow on set, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's broken. It's just different.
Did you have a favorite moment or like a hardest moment?
Hardest moment. One really difficult moment was 2 days before the shoot, when one of our lead actors dropped out of the shoot because he got cold feet about getting on his flight. And it's what we asked for. We going after these first timers from really unique characters. It was going to happen. Something like that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And amazingly, the team rolled with the punches, and we found Chris Smither, who is the guy with the oxygen tubes.
Oh yeah.
We found him like later that same day, and he was an incredible replacement for
incredible voice on that dude too.
Actor. Yeah. And Chris is out of all of the cast, Chris is the one who's like the most established as a musician. He's a real recording artist and kind of a folk blues mainstay.
Okay.
Really incredible artist. And he also had never acted before. He told me the other day, he spent his whole life chasing Grammys, and he was in one movie and now he's got an Oscar nomination. But he's a really special storyteller and was automatically charismatic on.
Yeah. What has the experience been for them now that it has been nominated and everything today? Nobody's ever could expect it, but obviously,
The experience has been really rewarding for them. I think several of them are going to come with us to the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
So that will be an experience for them. I said we're going to have the motliest crew to ever walk the red carpet. It's going to be really fun. I think our return on investment as short filmmakers is exposure. No one's making a lot of money off of this. And so this is a pinnacle of that. This is the most exposure you can get making a short film, to be on Netflix and to be nominated for an Academy Award. And so that extends to all of the cast who took huge leaps of faith and trusted the process to be in a film for the first time. So I'm just grateful that audiences around the talents, which in my opinion, the film is like a love letter to the underdog or to these kind of geniuses in the rough, and for their gifts to be appreciated in a way that they haven't before is like what it's all about.
Yeah. But I bet in reality, as a creator, you're like already headed somewhere else in terms of what you're making.
Kind
right?
of, yeah. It's hard to see past March 15th, but after that, I'll be eager to get something new going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
No, I was like, I can tell you're over it.
Yeah. The story for the singer. So it's interesting that you said you record the sound at all times. When they sung, did you choose a track list for every character and you just went, okay, pick any one of these songs? Or you're like, hey, you fucking ride the way you want to ride and we'll record how we want to record?
No, the songs are a bit of an exception. The performances were the least improvised of everything.
Got it.
In the film, and probably the simplest actually to put together because they're relatively efficiently covered, and each guy sings with 3 or so shots,
right,
in their song. And but yeah, so the day before we filmed, when everyone arrived to LA where we shot, we just sat in the bar together and we had a short list of ideas for each of them, what they would sing. And we sang through them and discussed them, and everyone had there were no real arguments. I think everyone was pretty clear on what made the most sense and what fit most organically, like into the mix with the other songs that we were choosing. So yeah, but when it came time to shoot those scenes, it was relatively straightforward compared to everything else. We did maybe 5 or 6 takes of each song, audio live, because we didn't want it to have that like studio musical polish. We wanted it to be grounded in documentary the way everything else was.
Yeah, it felt natural and flowed evenly. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt one of those narratives that like there is an intention, but almost like an organic, happy like accident for things to just start kind of coming together in one night. Reminded me of, is it going to sound weird? But I kept thinking of 12 Angry Men where I just felt like, okay, like the camera is almost like us like being a fly on the wall in a way that I felt like what was going on with the singers, where it's just like you just let them, because you see 4 or 5 different conversations and a dude telling a joke that really goes nowhere and some dude talking about a story, and you feel like you are part of each and every one of those conversations without it feeling like it's inundating yourself with so much noise, where a lot of background noise happens.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad you like that part of the film. It's you're really being steeped in this sort of humdrum of this sad, boring bar, and so we wanted to walk that line of you should be almost bored at that point. The last possible thing that could happen when you're watching the film in the first 4 or 5 minutes is that this incredible sing off and is going to emerge out of this sort of
mundane,
this dreary, mundane night. Yeah.
And
that was really inspired by the short story, which does a remarkable job lulling you to sleep a little bit in the beginning. And there's just copious detail and exposition about all the characters, what they're wearing, and who their fathers are, where they're from. And then I remember the first time I read the short story kind of nodding off a little bit, actually. I was so surprised because the writer played a trick on me where all of a sudden these guys are singing to one another and having a really memorable and connected evening. So yeah, I wanted to convey that to some extent, at least the broad strokes of the film to go from mundane to lively and inspired and connected.
Yeah.
The film starts with a fight and ends with a hug.
Yeah.
That was the approach.
The picking of the music, how did that work? Did you know that you wanted those particular songs? And how did you go about picking those songs? Or did the singers that were in it, did they collectively suggest those particular pieces of music? Or I'm sure licensing had to come into play too.
That too, yeah. I actually went through their videos, like on their Instagram or TikTok profiles, YouTube, whatever, and I found songs that I thought were good prospects. And I pulled those as a short list, and I would say, what do you think about these ones? I really love this one. And yeah, we just had a conversation. So simultaneously, like, pre-cleared some of the songs. Obviously, we weren't paying for them, but we
Right.
knew like what they would cost and started to work through the logistics if we could afford them. And yeah, the only exception being Mike Young, who's the bartender. He sparked this entire idea when I saw a viral video of him singing Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers in the subway station in New York. And he was always going to sing that because of the way I think I was so impacted by his performance in that video for it to spark this entire project. And so I wanted that to be, I couldn't imagine a different song. And that song has also been really meaningful to him in his life and his career because it went viral, and he sang it also on America's Got Talent. And he was just here last week. We had a really cool cousin room in LA, and he came out and wowed the guests with a performance. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. It just adds to the what was in the beginning of the short film being like this sort of like slow lull into a slumber of a dull party, then turns into just a lively event, especially with the bartender scenes. Like, the bartender was the one that's because I didn't know about that with his viral. So it showed like a character being like, hey, asking for a friend, we got to liven this bar a little bit here. You know what I mean? Like, you got to help us out here.
Right.
And then out of fucking nowhere, he's just like singing within an inch of his life. And then like the whole bar is lit up. Even like the dude who went to the bathroom and he was shy about singing and stuff, like that was incredible. And you see all walks of life kind of coming together. Also, like apropos of nothing, like the costume choices, it felt like, I don't know. It felt like a homage or like a thing of blue collared workers, of just like showing that these are just like grizzled working men who go to this bar, who just want to have their beers or whatever. And then in comes this other worker who's just like, man, this party sucks. We got to liven this place up a little bit. It just felt like there was like a class solidarity thing behind it that felt organic and real. It's nice.
Yeah, my costume designer, Brianna Murphy, did such an incredible job.
Yeah.
Actually, on our first conversation, we talked about, because we didn't really have a budget for costumes, so our idea was to like rent a handful of things from a costume house, but ask the guys to bring stuff of their own, and then on the day we would mix and match. And keeping in line with my documentary approach, I thought that would be fine. But as we got more and more into it, and Bree started pulling these great references, and we discussed more and more, it became evident, I think, that we did want to control. We wanted it to be grounded, but that we could caramelize all of these personalities in the bar by individualizing them, but also having a really cohesive quality to the clothes that are worn.
And not one stood out either. Like, they all were a unit in a way. Yeah.
I told Brie, I think she taught me on this project. I think she and the work that she did taught me the value of costume in a way that I didn't understand before. But yeah, I can't sing her praises enough.
Yeah. Job well done. Yeah. Shout out.
Shout out Brianna Murphy.
Yes.
Shout out to the whole cast, or to the whole crew and the cast. But yeah, so many great artists came together with too little money and time and resources. And
yeah, if you don't mind me asking, if you're allowed to say, what was your resource pool exactly? I'm always interested because as a low budget independent filmmaker.
Yeah, well, through a company called Warner Music Entertainment, and which I think no longer exists as a division of Warner Music Group. They just loved what the film said about the power of connection through music, and were really pretty wonderful, really hands off, never had a note. But so many people, so many producers contributed something, and there's a long list of producer credits on the film, and all of them are truly meaningful. But I think whenever I've made shorts, they've been this type of kind of scrap together labor of love, everybody pulling resources, even if that's just their time to be on set. But it really took an army.
Yeah. So are you able to reveal what the budget level was?
I don't think I can say that.
Okay, that's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's a fair question too, but
yeah, that's fair. How?
I can say the biggest chunk of the budget went to celluloid.
Yeah, I figured.
There you go.
Yeah. It was expensive. It was like film costs and
processing.
and processing, but also traveling and accommodating the guys, because they were from, like, one of them's from Australia, one of them's from Arkansas, and a couple of them came from New York, and so that was, and it's not like they were here for a long time, but even on a short film budget, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, and then crew, how big was the crew? You said 5?
I think the crew was maybe about
10?
No. The crew was probably even bigger. It was probably like 20 or something like that on an average day.
That's a small crew.
Yeah, a lot of people. It's fairly small. A lot of people came out for the experience of shooting on film for the first time, or we had some students and tried to make the experience really worthwhile for them. And I think we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to all of them.
That's awesome. I guess after this, do you know what you're typically, because the last few projects you've done has been like mainly dramas and stuff like that. Is that usually what you are wanting to do, or do you have an idea? Like, what's your next thing that you want to do in terms of what's in your pipeline?
Yeah, I think I always want to do both documentary and narrative.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask if The Singers is a proof of concept for a feature. It's not really. I think it's a true short film. Like, we say what we want to say in 17 minutes based on a 15-page text, but there's more there in the sense that I'm inspired by the world and the type of characters and the tone, and also the way we're working with documentary aesthetics and approach. But so I definitely want to build on that. And I find myself a little torn, because I'm in a moment when you about this moment. They're like, when you have a lot of exposure and success, you got to have this feature script ready in your back pocket. And I can't rush that. I don't know exactly what the project is, but I have a lot of ideas, and I'm looking forward to developing those. But on the documentary side, I have a feature documentary that I'm co-directing with my friend Kurt Schneider, and we're in year 6 of 7, like a Boyhood-esque documentary where you see a kid grow up on screen, and that's a really special project that's coming to the end of production in the next year or so. So that's my other big iron in the fire at the moment.
Would you say that you're more of like a doc person, or are you still a narrative, or you really honestly 50-50?
I really feel 50-50, and ironically, like, when I finish making a documentary, I really want to make
narrative. And
when I finish a narrative, I
the
really
balancer
want to
of both worlds.
And
I love
think
it.
I make docs. Yeah, docs, they feel pretty narrative, and when I make narratives, they feel kind of documentaries. Yeah. I'm also interested in the in between.
Yeah,
hybrid space.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about how it affects how you direct, because it's very similar to how I direct, and it's driven a lot of editors off the wall because it's a lot of bit improv, and that's why I end up editing all my own shit. Because one of my first things I used to do, I would throw the actors into real spaces and let them basically be like, just let them do whatever, and it would be very doc, and they would be improving essentially in a real situation out with no script. And it drove my assistant editor, like, he would be like, you can't edit this. And I was like, what do you mean you can't edit this? You can totally edit this. He's like, there's no continuity. I was like, I have
the timeline in my brain. I'll just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that. And there's nothing more important than the moment that you're shooting.
Agreed.
Not to take anything away from post-production people, but I think it's just a fact that nothing should be more held more precious than this moment on camera.
Agreed.
And we'll figure out the rest.
Yeah.
I shoot a verite doc on film over 7 years, and there's not a single slate or reference for how to sync, but we got great stuff in the moment of all the time that we need to manually sync. All of those basketball dribbles, all of those lines of dialogue, they've all been synced, and it happens. It's not time sensitive, really.
Yeah.
The way the precious moment that you're recording is. And,
yeah.
That's my
soapbox on. I'm saying another thing that I'm fascinated with too, because it's something that I've been trying to find a DP that would work the same way. Is I think there's something about being able to shoot your own stuff too. So do you feel like that's going to be how you're going to foresee directing? Is that you're always going to shoot your own stuff while you direct?
That's a good question. I think I will continue to do that, but maybe not always.
Okay.
There were definitely moments on The Singers where I was like, shit, I should have worked with
or a DP, yeah.
Just that was quite spread thin.
Yeah.
Especially with how open-ended and chaotic the process was to work without a script and with all these big personalities in the room and guiding them through the process. Yeah, there were times, and then there were also times where I was like, I couldn't have worked with DP because I'm just like all over the camera. I want to be like right there, almost in their eye line. But my gaffer Max Goldberg is really talented and couldn't have pulled off this look without him. But yeah, I don't know. I think in the future, I'm definitely interested in working with a DP. I know I'll learn and grow immensely as a director and as a DP from working that closely with someone else.
Yeah.
With the reins. Yeah, like I said earlier, it's a fairly organic process for me to be doing both.
Yeah.
And also to edit my own footage is really that also feels really
precious,
effortless.
Or right, yeah.
Same.
Yeah, no, yes, it's precious, but it also feels really organic and yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so funny because like I find so much of the story through the editing process. I don't understand how to not how to separate.
Really?
The two.
Oh, interesting.
Because I feel like so much editing is like writing. It is writing. Because that's the whole doc process is you find the story within the editing. So it is so interconnected that it's weird to me that there's certain directors that separate the two so much. Like for me, it's so interconnected that I don't see myself separating them. And when I'm forced to separate them, it feels very strange to me.
Yeah, it looks technical when it really isn't. Like, especially with editing, it's like it's because I feel like a lot of people are apprehensive when it comes to editing until you start playing with these programs yourself. Christine, you showed me Premiere Pro and you were just like, I don't know, man, just play around with it. And so like you just shoot some stuff, play around with it.
That's the best way to learn.
Yeah. And when you start to understand it and know, like you can develop, I don't know, some sort of like straightforward way of
hotkeys. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like,
you don't think about it anymore. Control S, Control S.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm always so confused when other directors, like you said, Sam, I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of times, most of these directors could very well should be very much involved with the editing process, but they separate it because it's technical, maybe? I don't know. I never understood that either.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And there, of course, is good reason for working with editors and bringing new voices into the mix, and because they can elevate the thinking in different ways and exposing the work of my own that I've edited at least in a first pass to a consulting editor or to a friend who's also an editor for feedback.
Yeah.
That process is really valuable for me.
Yeah. I think where I'm at is I like doing a first pass, second pass. I think when I got into the third pass where I don't care about it anymore, that's when I want to expose it to. Then I'll pass it off to another editor and be like, yeah, do what you will with it. It's fine. Because I'm over it anyway. That's cool. I guess from this process, what was something that you didn't know about yourself, but you've discovered after making The Singers?
Through The Singers?
Yeah. or reinforced?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think one thing that it reinforced was just like, I feel emboldened to take risks like this with my future projects. It's such a weird, I called my producer at the beginning of this project. I want to adapt a 1850 Russian short story, and I want to cast all first timers on social media, and I want to make it without a script and shoot it on 35 millimeter film. And amazingly, we found a way to do that. And even more amazingly, the film is resonating with audiences. And even more amazingly, still, it's Oscar nominated, which I feel like I'm still processing. But all of that it's emboldened me to continue to do that with future projects, even though along the way, there were plenty of moments where I was like, I really fucked up, because this is going to be a disaster and people aren't getting on their flights, or things aren't working on set. I should have just made the movie in this sort of like more conventional way, like everybody told me to. But now I think I feel really inspired and affirmed to keep taking risks with my future work.
Yeah. And how did you gather your team besides the actors? I know how you do the actors, but like your core crew, exactly.
Yeah. I went to college at USC with David Brichelle, who's one of the two main producers, and then his partner, Jack Pyatt. The two of them have a company called Highway West, and they had the relationship with Warner and pitched the film to them, and we were off to the races like that. Some of my other collaborators, Brianna Murphy and I worked together on Dee Dee. She's the costume designer who I mentioned. Natalie Lynn, casting director, also from Dee Dee. Yeah, and Max Goldberg, my gaffer, is someone I work with pretty frequently when I'm DPing. We did some Chef's Table together a couple of years ago, and then after that, moved.
And you guys worked on Chef. I will have to ask you about Chef's. I freaking love Chef's Table.
There's been at least a dozen episodes where Christine talks about Chef's Table.
I freaking love Chef's Table. Is like my favorite.
You just opened Pandora's box, Sam.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh no, Christine's box.
Yeah, she wants Chef's Table, man.
Chef's Table is a lineage to be a part of as a DP. I can't take responsibility, obviously, for the long history of that show. And
Cinegear last year was a 10-year anniversary, and I got to go watch the panel for it and sit in on it. It was like the best thing ever. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, really lovely people and fun show to be a part of.
Yeah, it's awesome. Sorry, big nerd about Chef's Table. I like anything that has to do with food. Yeah. Food and docs.
Yeah.
Docs about food.
I think I'm not like personally a foodie, but I like food and I love going to eat. But on Chef's Table, Evan Funke's episode in Italy, I had, I think, the single best bite of food I've ever eaten in my entire life. And it was a lasagna. Made by this little old lady, like in a cottage. And
you're a long way away from Stouffer's lasagnas, buddy.
I hate you. Oh my god, it sounds so great.
Yeah,
I just visited Italy.
The crew was all.
What part of Italy was it in?
That was outside of Bologna.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. It was incredible.
That sounds lovely. That's cool. Yeah, I went and visited Rome, so not a month ago. So, yeah, Rome was pretty cool. Not Bologna, but whatever.
It's its own thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
By the way, do you guys have a hard out? I can go on for ages. I don't know if y'all got to go though.
Oh,
I actually do have to go in about. Like at 11:45.
Perfect. Okay, we'll cut it off at 11:45.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's because I can go on. Thank you so much for doing this podcast, man. This has been great, and you gotta come back as well.
I was telling Sam that like before we're like, oh, I want to meet you because of Dee Dee, and then you're like, here's my time, and then I was in Amsterdam. I was like, I'm not lying. I'm not being an LA flaky person. Yeah.
And then once you got back,
you were nominated, and then there was no time, and then I was on set and I had no time, and so I was like, "We're just gonna have to do this after all your Oscar craziness, and then I have 0 jobs, and then then we'll meet."
Well, because it's a good way to say hi.
Yeah, Christine big timed you.
So one day it will work.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, dude, I'm actually really excited that your path was docs first, and there's not that I don't know that many people that started off that way, and so what you're doing, not docs specifically, then narratives and connect, because it's a different way of thinking, and so that's my path, and so a lot of the things that you're talking to me of how you work is very similar to how I think in terms of my narrative journey and stuff like that. So when you're like, I'm like, I do that too. So I've just been, my brain has been like, oh my God, me too, the whole time. And I'm trying to not make this a whole Me Too podcast.
Yeah, there are a lot of filmmakers who marry narrative and documentary, like Chloe Zhao or the Safdie brothers do it in their own way. Sean Baker has some doc influence in some of his filmmaking.
Yeah,
Robert Altman is one of my faves, and he's a bit of a pioneer in that, I think. So I don't necessarily think it's a novel idea, but I do think like we all have our own specific voice and way of doing that, and so that's what the Singers is for me. It's like me trying to hone and articulate that specific voice.
Yeah.
So I'm eager to keep developing it.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thanks for telling us about your process. And
yeah, of course. Adam, are you a filmmaker also?
Yeah, I reside in Austin, Texas, and I work in the art department. I'm a set deck. Yeah, I do a lot of set decorating. Lately, it's been mild around here in the film industry in Austin. It's been a little tough, but every once in a while I'll get like a set deck gig, and it would be for short, or sometimes if I'm lucky, a feature. But yeah, those features
That's where I moved from.
Yeah. and that's how I met Christine, is because she was here and introduced me to the Austin film community, who's been nothing but supportive and great to me. I love the Austin film community. These guys are the most talented.
Are you going to South by this year?
Not this year. No.
You'll probably work it though. You always work some stuff at South by.
I usually do, but this year I actually have a gig. I have a gig around that time. So yeah, I won't be able to actually participate or work there. I would like to, but honestly, the last couple years have, let's just say, it tested my patience with South by. It's definitely tested my patience, but a gig is a gig to keep the lights on. But yeah.
Wait, are you going to South by, Sam?
I'm not, because it's right during the Oscars.
Sure.
I have a short documentary that's premiering there.
Oh wow!
But I won't be able to be there for it. But it's always a good time.
Yeah, South by is the best. I love South by Southwest. Yeah, I've gone when I lived there. I went pretty much every single year. I figured out a way to. There was this like challenge you could do during South by, which is how long can you go without buying anything, but survive eating wise and drinking wise. I would do it with flying colors. Yeah, because you could do it because you could find all the places for free with all the parties and stuff like that. Yeah, so there was a master spreadsheet. Nice. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. I just and the traffic is you have to leave.
The traffic must be crazy for local.
Yeah, because you have to leave like an hour and a half anywhere you're going.
Unless you have a hookup. I had hookups in the city, so you would just know who you would stay with.
Oh, really?
City and stuff like that. Yeah.
Man, yeah, I'm jealous because
he knows how to work
it.
Yeah.
I know how to work South by. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So
maybe I got to start.
Thank you guys so much for.
Go ahead. Yeah, dude, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for doing this pod, and you got to come back, especially if you win the Oscar. Don't big time us and never come back to the Reelisms.
Let's do it.
I'm kidding.
No, I promise I'll come back with a little statue and all that stuff.
Yes.
That'd be sick. But yes. But we'll let you go because you gotta go. You have 11:45.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Of course.
So
nice to finally meet you.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll meet in person at some point.
Yeah.
When somebody said, I've just watched this short film on Singers Netflix. Amazing. Thank you for that. So yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes. So
awesome. All right, you guys have a great rest of your day.
Nice you as well, sir. Thank you so much.